Hello everyone, it's me, it's Dreamer. I hope you're doing well today. Now today's video is kind of building on yesterday's. If you hadn't watched it, it was my initial kind of takeaways from that first trailer. Now today I woke up to another trailer for 1.6.1, but I saw a ton of people covered it. It was also very, very lengthy. It was like 19 minutes, so I didn't think it would be wise to cover that in too much detail. But what I did think would be good to cover, and hopefully what you're interested in, is some initial thoughts and observations from the first day of testing on the Pioneer server. There are a few things, like I said, that I have found that I wanted to bring to you. So without further ado, let's jump in. Right, observation number one was the fact that the Phantimal cap that they put into place isn't taking effect in the first 60 levels. Now this is the behavior that we also saw in Season 5, so there's nothing new. But it would have been really hard to see it in Season 5 because we only had that change in Phase 3. So just to explain what I mean, in Season 5 Phase 3, you were forced to keep your Phantimals within a certain amount of levels of one another. So you couldn't just pump one of them with all of your materials and get it really, really high compared to the others. And an observation that we had was it didn't have that effect when it was going from 1 to 60. And that's exactly what we're seeing today on the Pioneer server. You can freely take the Celestial Hypergean Phantimal all the way to 60 without touching any other one. And it just lets you. So that is something just to point out. That is really cool because it means that we can focus the one Phantimal that we really, really want to use. Okay, next one. Staying on the topic of Phantimals, but just to give you a bit of information before I delve in, the current situation is we are max season level, we are max equipment, and as a result, to achieve something like high or true high deficit that we would be normally used to see how good a hero or how good a Phantimal truly is, we would need to be somewhere around the 550 mark. That is the observation just looking back at Season 5 Phase 1. Roughly around 540, 550 total AFK stages between Phantimal and Seasonal is where we hit max season level. And no one is there yet. I think the top pusher is Shadow. I think he's like 467. I think I'm like 354, so I'm nowhere near. But, like I said, staying on the topic of Phantimals, from my initial observation of going through each of them, utilizing some of them on my way to that 350 figure, I am wildly disappointed in all of them, except one. There's one that I'm not. However, taking a step back from my statement, they are all thematically and design-wise very, very cool. I should add that. Now, from an AFK stage perspective, it felt like there was one that just rose way above and beyond any of the others. And unfortunately, that was the Celestial Hypergean one. And the reason I say unfortunately is Celestial Hypergean units, as we have covered many a time on this channel, are extremely expensive to build. And yes, credit to the developers, we will be getting Aurora to Supreme Plus for free. So that is one of the 3 heroes that you need to enable her. And Mihira at 1 copy is normally a kind of like a stamp on the team anyway, so then you just need to find one fully built, be it Baelren or Saida, for example, and you're kind of there. So yes, it's plausible, and I understand it, but I'm still a bit disappointed by it. And you'll be probably asking, well, what about the others? What about, for example, Mauler? And the Alpha Bear, I think, is really cool. I actually think the Alpha Bear has the potential in future phases through his additional abilities that we will eventually unlock, be kind of like a Faramore, Cordan, Shakir type team. I just don't know the makeup of it. I don't know how it will get to where it needs to get to, but his Spirit Mark ability seems really cool, and it seems like it could work with a Baelren or a Faramore type carry. So we may see that, but once again, I highly doubt it. Now, the other prominent player, obviously in previous seasons, is the Wilder Phantimal or the Wilder Tiles. And before I go into my thoughts, my feelings on the Bloom Mother, because that's the Phantimal that we'll be using for the Wilders, I want to quickly say my perception of the wilder kind of like faction when we're going through AFK stages. When I think of a wilder team, I think of neat and tidy control. Everything is in place. You have it locked down. The enemies can't move. You know, you've got Saida crowd controlling them. You've got Iron crowd controlling them. You have Mahira crowd controlling. And yes, some of these heroes aren't wilders, but they fit in that wilder theme. You have a variety of different ways of controlling, like Theodore, Faramore, blah, 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 blah. And I was doing an AFK stage with the wilder team, and suddenly I looked up, I looked away and I looked back, and everything had just flown across the map. And I was so confused as to why. And I watched the replay back, and Bloom Mother uses her ultimate, and the enemies just go flying. And I'm like, what? So I go and read again, and pardon my dyslexia, and it caught my eye that I had missed a part of her ability, which was that she knocks back the enemies by 3 tiles. That, to me, just creates so much potential chaos where there needs to be none. So I'm a bit perplexed. It's kind of like she is really good for AFK stages, but then she has a massive drawback, which is she just yeets the enemy across the map by 3 tiles occasionally. So I'm not sure how to feel about her. I'm guessing wilders will still see a ton of use, but to kind of like conclude this section, my main observation is that Skyclops, the Celestial Hypergean Phantimal, will be the one that we will want to go to and utilize the most when we're pushing Phantimal AFK stages. And some people may be really happy with that. Some people may be really sad about that, but that is kind of like the fact at the moment, at least. Moving away from the Phantimals and more towards the heroes, I appreciate people were really interested to hear about how Celise and Aurora would do in AFK stages. And once again, giving you that same disclaimer that I did in the Phantimal section, no one is truly at high deficit to say whether one or both or none can be utilized in a high deficit situation. Now, both have seen use. For example, I used both of them in my AFK stages today. I used Celise more than I did Aurora. Actually, that's probably a lie. I think I used Aurora more, but I used her at very, very low deficit, like your first 100 AFK stage type situation. Therefore, it's not really true data, because I think any team of 5 heroes could have kind of like overcome those Apex stages just because of how powerful we were. Now, in saying that, both heroes clearly have their situations. They both clearly have AFK stages that they kind of cater towards. Both are extremely interesting heroes. Aurora, the fact that she is invincible when her summons are alive, which is her bunny and her unicorns, it's a very interesting concept. Celise seemingly is being kind of speculated to take the place of Valara, or at least be interchangeable with Valara on certain AFK stages. Personally, like I said, I actually think it's too early to speculate on either of them. I think that they're both thematically and design-wise very cool. I can comment on that. But until we truly have high deficit data, I don't think it's going to make much difference. In addition to that, on the Pioneer server right now, we only have access to the blue charm. And it may be that, for example, Aurora is really powerful once she gets her charm. And we just don't have that data right now. So that's why I'm kind of refraining from speculating, at least at this point. When we have more information, which I think will probably come from the VN server more than anything. I don't think it will come from the Pioneer server, because we're not going to get purple charms to my knowledge. Then we will be able to delve a bit deeper into both of these heroes. But to conclude on them, I think that they're both really cool. I think that you'll be quietly or happily, or what's the right way of saying this? I think you'll be excited to get your hands on both of them when Season 6 launches. Okay, now, in saying all of this, those are 2 new heroes. What I also want to do is reflect on 2 existing heroes that I think may end up seeing more use than maybe I anticipated. Before I reveal all as to which 2 heroes I'm referring to, I do want to give you one more piece of information, and I will expand on this topic in much more detail later in the video, and that's charms. I have an observation about charms. The observation is that there are no ranged defense charms like there were in Season 5. And if you're not following what I'm kind of putting out there, these are the charms that are in Season 5 right now. They're on certain support heroes, and they provide range defense to the hero placed. I believe it's in front of them. These don't exist in Season 6. And for that reason, the two heroes that I'm referring to, the first one is Sooooooo. I believe that Sooooooo may end up seeing more utilization this season for this one reason alone. She is one of the main heroes that provides range defense to the team. The reason she started to see less use was you could get away with using certain support heroes to provide Baleren in isolation range defense. If you can no longer do that, and he can no longer survive the initial burst with just Hugin, you're going to have to use Sooooooo, and you're going to have Supreme plus Sooooooo. And the reason why is, unfortunately, there have been a number of statue stages encountered and solved in early Apex using Sooooooo, and making use of Sooooooo's Supreme plus range defense ability. In addition to that, there have also been some new AFK stage enemies and types that we have encountered where Sooooooo has been part of the solve. Whether it's due to her wall or due to her Supreme plus, it's kind of a mix. But yeah, I'm just highlighting and giving you the data that we have seen on day one. That doesn't mean that it will make its way to global, but if it does, we could see a rise in the number of Sooooooo use AFK stages, is where I'm trying to get to. Now, the second hero that I want to talk about as part of this increase across two is Auna. Now, if you remember rightly, in my dedicated Auna video that I did, I speculated that she would see a lot of use in this season, but it would be based on quality of life and the fact that she makes more AFK stages, just pure autos, than any other hero can. And that is accurate. People have been pairing her with Saida, with Faramore, with Baleren, and she's doing exactly that. She is making AFK stages extremely autoable and just easy. Does that mean that she is 100% needed? No, but she is going to make life a lot easier. And just to kind of round out Auna, and the reason why I think players will end up really, really wanting her as part of their roster is the fact that we also have encountered a number of Flame Warden AFK stages so far in early Apex. And if you remember in the video that I made on Auna, I speculated that one of her main uses won't be to protect your Faramore, your Baleren, your Saida. It will be to protect your Valara or your squishy backline support, maybe like Celise, for example, now. And going back to the Valara example, one of the main issues that we've always encountered with Flame Warden stages is getting to Valara's fourth circle. And Auna just makes that really easy. So it's probably going to be a mainstay in Flame Warden solves that Auna is on Valara. I can't, once again, I can't guarantee that. That's from Pioneer data. I don't know if it will transition nicely into global, but if that is the fix and that makes life infinitely easier on Flame Warden stages, then yes, Auna's going to be needed, used always in those scenarios. So similar to how we see statues, we slot Sooooooo in, it may be a case of we see Flame Warden, we slot Auna in. Overall, for the reasons described, that's why I think that these two heroes, so Auna and Sooooooo, are going to have more application, more use case in Season 6. Now, stepping away from specific heroes and going to a general pool of heroes, what I wanted to do is quickly show you on the screen, and it's likely already started, some of the charm bonuses, I get my words out, for some of our favorite AFK stage heroes like Saida, like Baleren, but also I want to just touch upon some of the support heroes that we use, like Hugin. All of them have what seems to be a really good charm bonus. For example, the supports, once again, they have their place in front, place behind. It's purely offensive stats this time, and there's no defensive stats, which, once again, as I highlighted earlier in the video, is going to be a drawback to us. Also, it seems that certain heroes don't really come online until they get to their legendary status of charm. Saida is one of those candidates. Yes, she's always going to be really good, but when she gets to legendary and she unlocks that 15% flat damage dealt increase, that will be really meaningful for her. So yeah, I'll let the rest of them kind of just pass through, and I want to go on to some bonus observations that aren't purely AFK stage focused, just some things that I think may be worth shouting out and calling out. The first bonus observation is not directly tied to the Pioneer server, but it's on the same theme. And it's the fact that the 1.6.1 trailer that we had released to the world earlier today, that was like 19 minutes long, really long trailer, and it didn't mention new enemies that we can encounter in AFK stages. It didn't mention AFK stages once, to my knowledge, unless I really missed something when I was watching it at the gym. So yeah, I'm just kind of disappointed by the fact that they've just forgotten about AFK stages again in a large video, a large trailer, and it makes like the 4th or 5th piece of communication that they've put out about Season 6 that doesn't have anything about AFK stages. So kind of feeling a bit neglected from this side of the fence, but yeah, is what it is. Flowing nicely into the enemies that we will be encountering in Season 6, whether that's out in the world or that we encounter in AFK stages. I'm not going to spoil too much here. I will just put little icons around the screen. However, one thing that I will give you is it seems, playing that famous tape recorder from the end of Phase 1, Season 5, where the developers said, "We're not happy at the state of AFK stages and the fact that you're using one hero 80% of the time," cough cough, Saida. It does seem like the design philosophy has worked against our favorite Hypergean, or at least my favorite Hypergean rogue. And as a result, some of the new enemies that we will encounter have unaffected or pseudo unaffected, which is effectively until they lose their shield, they're unaffected. So just to point out, that may or may not annoy, please, not really sure which word to use, some players. The next one is the fact that new players, it was mentioned in 1.6.1's trailer, will be able to, once they get out of the tutorial, flow into Season 6 automatically. I'm really concerned about that. I'm not gonna lie. I'm really concerned about how that will feel for a new player to get planted into season AFK stages. And the reason I say this is, having come from doing that free-to-play series in only like a few months ago, like a month ago, in fact, literally a month ago, going from pre-season AFK stages to season AFK stages was night and day. It was crazy how different it was. And yeah, slightly terrified for a new player who finishes the tutorial, is really excited and happy to play the game, is really enjoying the story of Season 6, goes into AFK stages, pushes a handful and gets completely planted against the wall and isn't able to progress as a result. And it goes back all the way, once again going full circle, to the fact that the Phantimal for AFK stages that seemingly is looking the best is Skyclops. How on earth is a new player, outside of one copy Mahira and then the fully built free Aurora, going to enable Skyclops? Now, I'm just thinking out loud. It's a concern of mine. Sticking with the new player experience, there have been some changes. For example, the first purchase that used to be Rowan is now Shamira. And I think that's a really good change, by the way. Shamira is an extremely impactful hero for Dream Realm to any new player. And as we found in our free-to-play series, there was a sizable score gap between the players that got lucky, even the free-to-play players that got lucky and pulled Shamira in an abundance, versus the ones that only had a single copy of her. So for those low spenders that unlock this first purchase bonus, to get a free copy of her is fantastic. I think that's really, really good change. Right, the final two observations. The first one is something completely not serious, and it's the fact that the Bonnie skin is really, really cool. I mentioned this yesterday in my video. The Bonnie skin has blown me away, and I can't wait to spend my hard-earned money on this skin that I will probably use very, very small amounts considering how little Bonnie is used, but I'll find a way. I'll make it work. Now, the second one that is more serious is the fact that we are now AFK Homestead or AFK Journey, or is it AFK Journey Homestead? It's AFK Journey Homestead. That's what we are. The new direction for the game, it has me slightly concerned. It has me slightly concerned for a few reasons. The first one is the fact that there are new bundles in the store that sell stamina. Not a huge fan of that, personally speaking. I get the audience for it. I also am not a huge fan of the fact that they've attached something to the Gazette for Homestead, where you would have to send those player requests and then people could click on them and it would speed them up by a couple minutes. If you have a Gazette, it's automatically done. I don't really get why it's attached to the Gazette, but yeah, it is. And then in saying all of this, there are new VIP bundles. So for example, when you get to VIP 5, which we can see on the Pioneer server, you unlock a special bundle that you as a VIP 5 can buy. I don't know how often these occur. I don't know if it's every level thereafter 5. I don't know if it's every 5 levels like we had seen. So it's like 5, 10, 15, or is it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, So yeah, interested to see how many of those are going to appear when we launch into global. In addition to that, there's now Homestead decor attached to VIP level, which is once again an interesting vibe. But to round out why I think this is a serious topic, and maybe it's one for a different video, and probably it's for a different content creator. It's somebody for a larger audience. It's like a puzzle video, I think. It's a we need to talk about the direction of Homestead titled video. And it's the fact that obviously there is more focus. For example, they've even told us that the new tutorial brings the new player into their homestead. And I personally want to know if the direction of the game is going into this, introduce them to Homestead early, get a homestead developed, created. We're getting temporary buffs through that new Dream Delve kind of event or feature or building from Aurora. What I want to know is, eventually, is that going to turn into a player progression system or a power system? At the moment, that buff is very temporary, and it's something like, increase your wheat harvest by 10%. Like, it's nothing. If it was meaningful, however, for example, every hero got a 5% attack bonus for the day, it suddenly leaves those players that had opted out of Homestead at a massive disadvantage. And I'm not saying that tomorrow morning we're going to wake up and the developer's gone, by the way, we've implemented this new buff. Like, that's not what I'm alluding to. But what I am trying to get to is, it would be nice to have a roadmap as to what the developers envisage for Homestead. If it is now making up the fundamental parts of a tutorial and players new to this game will have one by default, is that the grounds for a new potential power progression system in future? And if it isn't, and it's a case of Homestead will always only impact Homestead, cool, no problems. Just tell us. If, however, it's a case of, do you know what, in the background, we're thinking about adding a framework into Homestead that will allow us to progress into a player power system, we're just giving you a heads up. I think it's the honesty that the population or the community would want, because suddenly you've got players who had opted out of a Homestead going, well, I really like this game. I'm going to have to build one. I better get to it. But you will also weed out the people that don't fit your game. And being honest, maybe actually taking that weeding out comment and spinning it into a positive. If you are honest and you do say, by the way, we changed the logo to AFK Homestead for a reason, the next player progression system will be in Homestead, we don't know when, we don't have a timeline, it will look something like AFK Arena's furniture system, but we just want to give you this early piece of information, it might incentivize more people to start building their Homestead. And suddenly you've got a ton more people invested in the game mode. And suddenly you might sell more of those weird and wacky stamina bundles. I don't know. All right, that's it. I'm done. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know your feelings. Let me know any comments. If you have any observations from either your testing on Pioneer or your watching of any other content creators' videos, If you share in some of my thoughts, if you differ from some of my thoughts, let me know. I'm always interested to chat with you guys. Thank you as always for the support. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. Season 6 is fast approaching, and honestly, I can't wait. Cool. See you later.